Hi, welcome to the School Run. I'm Jane.
And I'm Liv.
And we are going to share with you the best conversations we have on our school run.
We will invite guests and debate topics that affect and resonate with every generation.
We all remember our own school run, so maybe have a think about yours.
What do you remember?
Hello and welcome to another episode of The School Run. It's amazing. We are recording with some of the most amazing guests, sharing their stories, sharing their wisdom, helping to empower and inspire young people. And it's an absolute privilege to do this alongside my co-host, my 15-year-old daughter, Liv. And for those that haven't listened to an episode before, we started this in February 2023. The response has been amazing. The support has been amazing. We can't thank people enough. We just thought my mum and dad would listen, Liv's grandma and grandpa, but the listenership is growing every single week and it's incredible. And I'm really privileged to have these chats with Liv. How are you feeling?
I am super. I always say this every time we get a guest on, that I'm super excited for the chat, but I genuinely am, because I never know where the conversation's going to go, and it's a surprise for me as well.
She sits down 5 minutes before we start an episode, and I give her the background of the guest that we're going to chat to, and she goes, "Yeah, Mum, okay, let's see where this goes." And she's meeting the most amazing people. So today we're joined by Sian Millar. She runs the Bucket List Company. How exciting does that sound for young people and old? So we're going to find out more about that. I first came into contact with Sian when we were sat next to each other at one of our first face-to-face meetings in the Entrepreneurs Circle that was around at that time. We're thinking it was about 13 years ago, 2010. We've never met up since those events, but we've stayed in touch on social media. I know that she built a huge business in Dizzy Duck's nurseries, and there's so much background. Our worlds collided when we both found ourselves alcohol-free, and I'm sure that this chat is going to be insightful. Thank you for joining us, Sian.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be on, and I love your energy. I think it's fantastic what you're doing with Liv. I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and having a 15-year-old daughter myself, this resonates. Thanks for having me.
Oh, does it? That's so exciting. I know you're a mum of 3. How old are your children and where are they up to in their journeys?
My eldest daughter, Abby, is 19, nearly 20. She is working as an estate agent. She left school during COVID, had started A-levels, didn't quite get on with them very well. And we had a chat saying, you know what, if it's not for you, let's, find a job and knock yourself out in the real world, really. So that's where she is. Izzy is 15, same as Liv, GCSE year. So, I feel your pain. It's a tough one. I'm in revision at the moment and hopes to go on to college. Not quite sure which route to take yet. There's so many different options, and I certainly feel for you guys at this age. It's really tough, and there's an awful lot of pressure put on. I'm not sure all of it's necessary, but that's, I guess, another story.
Agreed. We'll come on to that.
And then my youngest, Nancy, is nearly 13. She's my baby. So I think I just had Nancy when I met you, Jane. And then Mason, is soon to be my stepson, is 6. And Mark also has 2 older girls, Eleni, 23, and Raya, who's 17. So we're a blended family with lots of characters, and it's all good fun. Yeah, for the whole spectrum.
That's so amazing. What do you want to ask Sian about maybe her daughter going through GCSEs? What's it like in your house, Sian, right now? Because obviously you have other children as well, but there's this pressure coming in. There's only me and Liv and my obviously Liv's stepdad, my husband, in our household. So we're not considering other people, but it's a strange time, isn't it?
It is a real challenge. I think the GCSE time, I'm trying to find a balance between pushing Izzy to get the results that I know she's capable of, but not pushing too hard, because there is a balance to be found. I don't think that academia is the end, the be all and end all. My own experiences have certainly reflected that you don't need to be straight A student in school to actually go on and achieve really, really great things. So at the moment, I'm trying to find that balance, and it is a challenge, balancing those kind of quite stressful exams, the pressure at school. 15 is a tough age anyway. You're learning a lot about yourself, the world around you. You're trying to find your place in the world. Your body's changing, your outlook on life is changing, influenced by mum, dad, families, extended families, siblings. And it's all very, very confusing. So there's that balance of nurturing and also a little bit of pushing as well. I don't know whether I've got it right or not. I guess we only do the job. We do a good enough job, is what I'm saying. I think as a parent, you can only be good enough. And we all try. I don't know whether I'm getting it right.
Yeah, it's the first time for all of us, isn't it? I know you've got other children, but each one is an individual, and you're learning as you go together to be mum and daughter and navigate. Talk to me then, Sian, about your background in terms of your school experience, because obviously you'll probably have shared that with your own daughters at different times, but we're very much, Liv and I, about, well, I am to Liv, it doesn't have to all be figured out at school. All these big decisions that they seem to be thrown, like, what are you doing next? Are you going into work? Are you going to do A-levels? Like, a lot of massive decisions when you don't know what you want to be or do. How was it for you at that time?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I remember at school, it seemed like everyone had it figured out apart from me. It was very much, you were given options. Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a vet? Do you want to go to law school? I went to a grammar school as well. So it almost felt like there was more increased pressure there because everyone wanted to go to university. I think at the end of my A-levels, I was one of the only students they'd ever had there that didn't go to university. It just, I tried it. It really wasn't for me. I did about 4 weeks and then went, nah, it's not my jam, to be honest. But yeah, it was a challenge. I think it always feels like everyone knows what they're doing apart from you. And that certainly was how I felt at school. I remember in those, that you used to have careers lessons, and you'd have a careers advisor who hadn't ever had any career other than advising people on what career they should go into, would sit down. It's true, isn't it? I mean, they put people in these roles and they're supposed to inspire and nurture you. And you think, you're working 3 days a week as a careers advisor because you haven't got any other career. These aren't the sort of people that should be inspiring our young people. They shouldn't. You think I'm going to tell you a jokey story now, but honestly, I did one of their little survey things and it told me I should go to university to do a soil management degree. I mean, what the hell is soil management? I was
soil? What, you mean like soil as in like the brown stuff?
Yeah, like agriculture. And I was like, sorry, how have we got to this? What? Oh, well, the system says you should go and do a soil management degree. And I think it was at that point.
What even is that? That's crazy. Why are we telling young people this?
But see, at school it was less about what you did, it was about what university you went to. And apparently there was a college at Cambridge that you could go to do this agriculture. I don't know. It was all about getting you into further education, not about playing to your strengths and looking at, where you should be going. And I think that's probably where they lost me. I remember when people said, where do you see yourself when you're older? And all I could see when I visualised older me at work, it's really silly and I can't believe I'm telling you this. I don't think I've ever told anyone this, but I was wearing like this it was a 2-piece suit and it was a light blue, like baby blue, and it was done up and it was like a little jacket and a little skirt. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to wear a suit. And I remember thinking,
I love that though.
That's really silly. But the overwhelming thing within this is when I was wearing the blue suit, I was also pregnant in my vision. So I don't know where it came from, but I wanted to be a mum. I knew I wanted to be a mum, and I knew that I wanted to wear a blue suit. So that was the extent of my career planning at school. And like I said, It felt like everyone else had it figured out apart from me. And I say this a lot to Izzy, especially at the moment. It really doesn't matter your next steps from GCSEs onto A-levels. Let's just look at it that you're just extending your time in the education area. You know, you don't have to do something that leads you to a future career. If you're not quite sure, why not do something that's broad? It can lead you to lots of different areas rather than, you know, 3 sciences, because you know you don't want to go and be a doctor, or, you know, you don't necessarily want to do something that's going to constrain you to a specific career path. Yeah.
And I suspect you're probably a bit like me. Let's look at who you are as a person. Like, what are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What are your blind sides? How do you, are you a people's person? Like, trying to discover.
I think what's really interesting is every guest we've had on, at one point, obviously we've had many different ages that we've interviewed on our podcast. Everyone has talked about a careers advisor. Like, everyone. And I totally agree with what you're saying. They're not the people that should be like inspiring young children. What should be happening is you should be getting like people who actually work in that job into schools, like run an assembly or do a Zoom call on what it's like, and to actually really understand that job. And it's interesting just how all the generation have continued to have these careers meetings, that even now I've had them, and it shows that not much has changed in that area. Like, it's just, even I was in one of my PE lessons the other day, and the girls in the back row said, yeah, all these careers advisors, they just like tell you like to be a doctor or like a lawyer, and that is just, it's so limited in what they're telling young people in the jobs and things like that.
I think you're right, Liv. I think it's really short-sighted of the schools as well. So like I said, from my school, I was probably one of the only people at that stage that just didn't go on to university. They came round and gave out UCAS forms, as in, this is what you're going to... Are they still UCAS forms? Is that what they're called?
That's right, yeah.
Uni you want to go to. It wasn't you could go and do an apprenticeship, or you could get a job. It just wasn't that. And I'm hoping it's changed now. However, a few years ago, I contacted my old school and said, hey, I'm an ex-student. I've done all right. I mean, I have done all right. I've sold a multi-million-pound business, and I'm a multi-award-winning entrepreneur. I've set up and sold businesses. I've bought. I've turned around businesses. How about I come in and do a talk on entrepreneurship? And they didn't get back to me. So I tried again and said, I'd really like to come in and, talk at your careers day. And again, they didn't get back to me. And I didn't try again because, I don't know, I always felt at school like I wasn't good enough because I didn't go to uni. And all those feelings came flooding back. And I'm like, hang on a minute, you know what? I'm not being arrogant when I say it, but I would probably think I've done better than the majority of people at that school. I've got a successful career and I'm incredibly happy with my life. Let me come and talk about it. So I am going to follow it up. And on the basis of this, I might even send them a copy of your podcast, Liv, and tell them that they need to come in to talk.
And I think, go on, carry on.
Go on, you go.
What I was just thinking is, and I feel like it's a two-way street. Like, for any head teacher listening, or anyone who works in the school, on one part it has to be the school open-minded to want these people to, like you, to come in and share their experience. They have to be open-minded enough to let that come in and kind of disrupt the structure of the careers meetings, to be able to expand the opportunities to students, and also for them to ask for those people to come in. But on the other hand, you need these people in these jobs like you to actually put forward and ask to come into these schools, because actually it is the people in school now that are going to be that next generation, and it's who we're going to be working with in the future. And if you can give them the best opportunities, then you're going to get the best people in the best jobs.
Yeah, I think it's that open-mindedness, isn't it? And that's something that is quite difficult to teach young people through the school system. I think one thing, when I ran the nurseries, we used to talk a lot about how the children coming through the nurseries, we were setting them up for a world where they would be in jobs that don't even exist yet, in industries that we can't even fathom yet, using technology that hasn't even been considered yet. So, it's less about teaching them things and facts and, you know, what king died in what year. It's about teaching creativity and open-mindedness. So, yeah, you're spot on. Jane, I think you asked a question about strengths and weaknesses. I think in terms of parenting, I guess, one of my strengths would be encouraging my children's entrepreneurial flair. I'm sure you've seen on social media, my kids get involved in all sorts of things. Abby, when I refused to give her, you know, extra money to buy presents at Christmas, I told her she needed to earn it. She went out and set up a little plate business and made Christmas plates for people to leave Santa mince pies. And Nancy made some Christmas decorations with people's names and stuff on last year. And Izzy, I mean, you must have seen the story about Izzy buying a burger van off of eBay for £1. When she was about 12 without telling anyone. So that, you know, they definitely have an entrepreneurial flair, which I guess must come from seeing me. And in terms of weaknesses, I guess I'm still learning. We touched on it earlier. I say to my kids a lot, I'm still learning. You know, I've never done this before. This is my first time being a mum, and sometimes I'll get it wrong. And I'm learning with you guys. And I guess my weakness is that sometimes I want to fix things for them. I kind of see a problem and I just want to run in and fix it. And I'm learning that I just can't do that. I have to let them make their own mistakes. And you'll know as a mum, it's really difficult to do that and watch your kids struggle a little bit. So yeah, that would be a weakness, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because our podcast this week that's just gone live on Monday as we're recording this, so sort of middle of April, the recording then, we talked about, the lady we interviewed was talking about financial literacy, entrepreneur skills in young children and how the basics are not taught within schools. And actually when she's recruiting people for her businesses, she finds that a lot of young people that have come from a family of freelancers, self-employed, you know, business people, entrepreneurs, have got a wider range of understanding than those with a different background. And so that's really interesting because I think your children have obviously learnt and fed from you, just like Liv has. I remember you making little, do you remember the bracelets that you did and sold? And
they were like
loom
loom bands, and I used to like make little bracelets and just like sell them to people.
Yeah, and raise money for charity. And, you know, the episode we talked about was all about donating money, saving money, investing money, you know, and your children are learning loads about that from you, Sian. You touched on the nurseries, but let's what took you from school then to where I met you, Dizzy Duck, you know, with Dizzy Ducks. What was that journey like?
So that was me leaving school, deciding uni wasn't for me, and very similar to like I did with Abby when she said she didn't want to be at school. My mum said, "Well, just go and get a job then," and I did. I worked just in an accounts department of a solicitors for a while. I then went on and worked at Sony, the big global brand Sony, in the accounts department. Then I fell pregnant with Abby, so that was all cut very short, just as I'd qualified as an accountant. And it was when I had Abby, I then set the nurseries up. So there was a real drive there of kind of like, I don't want to go back to the city. Set the nurseries up, and that business just grew from there. It was an excellent business. I took it to, you know, a multi-million-pound business, 150 staff. And when I exited that in 2019, that was a sale to a big corporate who are now, they're doing really, really well. They are huge in the UK. They've got many, many more nurseries. And it's just such a joy to see them take what we had to such a big level. I think for me, it was the right decision to exit when I did. It provided a level of security for me and my girls forever, which was a truly wonderful thing to happen to me in my 30s, and gave me the opportunity to then to kind of decide what I want to do because of, you know, I can do it now rather than I have to. And that's when the opportunity came to me to join the Bucket List Company, which was founded by Keith Crockford a few years previously. We've got very complementing skills. He's excellent with the customers. He loves going on the trips. He's like a marketing genius. And I'm very much back office in that business. So, we take groups of travellers all across the world, and we're always up a mountain or in some far-flung destination. The interesting thing for this podcast is we've just acquired the school expedition company, so we will now be taking our bucket list trips to schools and
I love that.
for young people, again, just to show that the curriculum needs to be a little bit more well-rounded. Let's go and learn about the Amazon by going to the Amazon, or let's go and spend some time in another culture and experience what that's really like. So when people come out of school, they are a bit more well-rounded.
Oh God, this is incredible. Like, I literally think we could have this conversation for a full day, Sian. I see you up mountains. I see you with a backpack on your back on Facebook. I see you with, having amazing experiences with your friends as an individual, with your fiance, and also, with your girls. And I also know that you do, I remember very early on seeing that you do sort of vision boards together and all of that kind of stuff, which Liv and I do too. Yeah, talk to us all about that. And because you've given masses of experience to your girls, and now widen it out with the Bucket List Company into schools for lots of young people.
Yeah, there's just so much, isn't there? I think we certainly benefit from doing the kind of the vision board stuff as a family, and just sitting down and just putting some stuff on there and then planning it through and ticking it off. And I just want to show them that it's a big wide world out there. So much of my learning about who I am came from my travels. I absolutely love it. And when people hear how much I've travelled all over the world, they can't believe I only actually started that about 6 years ago. I'd never really travelled before I got divorced, and I could spend time going around the world without the kids, and then they joined me. I find it's just you learn so much about yourself when your home comforts are stripped away. And I would say to anybody, the one piece of advice I would give to teenage me, it would be to travel a little bit earlier. You asked me this.
Great.
You asked me this earlier at the start, and I think there's so much to be said of getting out your comfort zone. I say this to my eldest daughter, and she's a little bit nervous of going travelling. She hasn't done it yet. And I keep saying to her, darling, the world is bigger than the Crown pub in Billericay on a Friday night. There is a big wide world out there. And I know when you're a teenager, a comfort zone is a very, it's a comfy place, right? But once you step outside that and you realise what you're capable of, travelling around the world taught me that I'm capable of getting myself halfway across the world and surviving and actually meeting people and talking to them rather than having my head stuck in my phone. And I think if my kids can have that young, it will set them in such a good place for their futures. You learn about how to converse with different cultures, how to get people to help you even if you're lost or struggling. Traveling just brings out the best in everybody. I've never had anyone regret a traveling experience. The other thing it taught me, I know you said you've seen pictures of me up mountains and whatnot, 19, 20-year-old me would never have believed that I would head off to Nepal to Mount Everest or, start trekking across the Sahara for 10 days. It just would never have happened because I was very precious. I was, a very Essex girl, if I'm honest. And yeah, once you get out of that comfort zone, there's no going back. Just do it.
It's incredible. So I've got so many questions around that, about how the Bucket List Company actually does it and what you do. And obviously people say, write your bucket list, what's on your bucket list, those kind of things. As entrepreneurs, we buy in big to writing goals and visualizing those and putting them on vision boards. So maybe we start there. Where did doing vision boards with your girls come from? So maybe there's a young person out there that wants to think, I want to do this with my mum and dad or my guardian, or where did the idea come from? How do you do it?
Okay.
And then what happens?
So it all started, I did it very loosely from sort of my mid-30s. So it's very, very recent. I'm not mid-30s anymore. That's a lie. It's not recent. I'm definitely not mid-30s. I'm mid-40s now. In my head, I'm still mid-30s. Okay. So It sounds really stupid. I can't believe I'm telling you this story. So,
No, I love it.
I woke up one morning and in my like typically dramatic fashion, I said to my then husband, I had a really bad dream last night. I was 33 and I knew in my dream so at this point I was 33 and I was like, right, in my dream I was 43 and I knew I was going to die in my dream. And I was really, really panicking because I knew that I was going to die. And at this point, I was 33. And he was like, it was just a dream. And I was like, yeah, but just imagine if I've only got 10 years left. And all day, he was like, oh, whatever. And anyway, all day, this was going around in my head. God, what if like that was true and I've only got 10 years left? What would I want to do in those 10 years? And I got really, really dramatic about it. I was like, oh my God, like, what if it's a sign, right? Okay, so I'm 42 now, so I'm really hoping I'm not going to peg it in December, but it's really changed me fundamentally because everything I'm doing now, I'm like, well, what if I do die at 43? I want to tick off all these amazing things. I want to go to these countries. I want to float in the Dead Sea. I wanted to see Mount Everest. I want to go on a safari. I want to do a hot air balloon over Marrakesh, all of these things. Well, if I don't tick them off now, when am I going to tick them off? So that started thinking. And then I started thinking, well, hang on a minute. Who even knows that I've got until I'm 43? This was when I was 33. I could get knocked over by a bus tomorrow. So actually, if I write these things down, I can start ticking them off. Then, God forbid, if I've only got 10 years left, I can start working my way through them. If I've got 20 years left, bonus, I'll be able to do loads more. And it just changed my mindset. Once you acknowledge that we are not here forever, you start making shit happen. Excuse my French. But no,
it's right. You start looking at things and putting them down and going, well, I've got to do them now and enjoy and appreciate the moment and not keep putting things off and putting them on a backlist. Make them happen and find a way to make them happen.
Yeah, what I think is, I know that you said like you wanted to do these things and write them down. Like for me, I would want to do it, but I wouldn't know what to put down. Like, do you write down like really specific things, like wanting to swim in the Dead Sea? Because I don't know what I'd be able to like think of like what I'd want to do, if that makes sense. Like, I'd kind of just put like a broad like travel the world.
So that's a really good point, Liv, because you don't know what you don't know. So I found this website and I believe it's called the masterbucketlist.co.uk. It was something like that. And I will find it out and I'll follow it up with you afterwards. And it's just ideas for your bucket list. And I went on there and I was like, oh yeah, I'd like to do that. Oh yeah, I want to stand under the Las Vegas sign. Yeah, I quite fancy that. And I want to go on a bullet train in Japan. Yeah. So all of these things I want to do, but I would never have thought I'm going to write it down because, if someone asks you an open-ended question, where do you stop? But that would be a great starting point. So I would say if at 15 you could spend half an hour on that website, I think there's like hundreds of different things. Some are travel related, some are career related. Some things on my bucket list were things like create a happy home. How do you measure that? Put some money aside for my children so that, they can maybe have a part of a deposit for their house, when they want to do that. Learn a new skill. I quite like to learn Spanish. So there's all sorts of things, not just travel. And I think, then just pin it up somewhere. And I've got mine in a box just around the corner here. And every now and again, I just go through it and one of them, I eat at the Fat Duck restaurant. I really wanted to go to Heston's restaurant and eat at the Fat Duck, but it's ridiculously expensive. And I was thinking, I want to put it off. But last time I checked some things off, my ballooning over Marrakesh, I noticed it and I thought, you know what? I am going to book that. I'm just going to do it. And the beauty of writing things down is that they get done. You become accountable to yourself.
Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We're just cutting in to say, if you're enjoying our podcast, please click the follow button on whichever platform you're listening on. And please leave us a review. We'd be so grateful for your support and feedback. Podcasts are free to listen to, but if you are loving our school run chats and debates, please consider buying us a virtual coffee. The link will be in the description of every podcast episode, and it will also be in the bio of our Instagram, which is @theschoolrun_. _official. And why not give it a follow while you're there so you can see all the updates and get sneak peeks at upcoming episodes. Thank you so much and happy listening.
You don't know what you don't know. So you've kind of got to open up. You might read something in a book. You might spot something somewhere. You might have a conversation with someone and they mention something and you don't know what that is. So you question it. You stay curious and you go, well, what is that? And then you think, oh, I'd like to do that. Or I might want to behave. And it doesn't have to be monetary things or experiences. It could be so many different things.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because I was going to say, obviously, on the bucket list, like for me, one of the main things for me would be like to travel the world. But obviously, like, what would you say to people who like my age who, obviously you don't have the money to do that and obviously probably maybe can't go on without parents yet, but still want to actually have a bucket list and check things off?
So I guess that comes down to what Sian does with her girls then, maybe.
Yeah, start small. There's no reason you can't start small. I mean, your bucket list might be to have £500 in your savings account. That could be your first bucket list tick. And as you get your part-time job, just put 10%, 15, 20% aside, whatever it might be, and start building up to that. And the beauty of a bucket list, Liv, is that it's constantly evolving. Once you've done that, you can put another thing in to say, well, actually, I'd like £1,000 in my savings. So actually, by the time you get to 18, 19, 20, you have got some cash there and you can get a ticket and you can go backpacking in Europe, or you could fly to Australia and camper van around the coast. I think forward planning now will set you in really good stead for the future. My bucket list is constantly evolving. It is not just a fixed list and I'm ticking them off one by one. The beauty of my travels is that I meet people, wonderful people, who tell me about the things that they've done. And they might not call it a bucket list. They might just call it a list of things that they want to do, or a travel list, or places they've been. And I say, oh, well, you've been to Bolivia to see the salt flats. Oh, yeah, I'm up for a bit of that. And then it goes on my list. So, my list is getting longer. It's not getting shorter because, whilst I had that awful dream and it set me on this path, I'm really hoping that I've got a lot longer in me. I'm hoping I'm only, just getting warmed up, really. And the world is a big place. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to learn. I'm really conscious. There's courses out there I want to do. There's more I want to do with my career. I want to see my girls be really, really happy, settled in their homes. I'd like to be a grandma at one, I know that's not my thing, but, one thing on my bucket list would be to take my grandchildren, see my grandchildren at school or something like that. So it's just constantly evolving.
Oh, do you know what this is giving me? I know I always compare one of our podcasts or something, but I don't know if you've ever seen the film New Year's Eve, and it's got all the different stories in, and then there's this one story where this woman, she has a bucket list, and it's New Year's Eve, and she has all these things that she wants to do before New Year's Day, before like midnight, and it's just giving me that vibe, and I guess it kind of shows that also to have a bucket list, you have got to have like the bravery to do it, like actually be brave to, I don't know, book a ticket to Australia. That takes some like courage to actually do that.
Yeah, it does. I talked about this week. We do a podcast at the Bucket List Company, and I was talking about my first travels, and I was saying how the very first trip I did, I was so scared. Like, just because I do this stuff doesn't mean it's not scary. I sat on the plane and I was on my own. I was meeting a group in Jakarta in Indonesia. So I had to get there and I was really nervous. I think as you get older, the nerves don't go away, but you just learn to deal with them a bit more. If you're not brave, you miss out on so much. Sometimes you've just got to give yourself a little bit of a talking to, and that's with anything, isn't it? There's so much that's outside of our comfort zone. I've done other things like when I ran the London Marathon. I mean, I was a wreck. I'm not sporty. I'm not athletic. I was at school. I was always the one who was last in cross country, last to be picked at games. I faked my period every week, so I'd miss PE. That was me, right? I would have to pee in the register. Do they still do that? Pee in the register?
Yeah. Well, they did when I was at school too.
Yeah, so that was me. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, no, I'm gonna do it. Even if I walk it, it's still 26 miles. And I didn't walk it. I achieved it. And but the point being, at the start line, I was shaking. I was thinking, people like me don't do this. But when you start to realise, actually, well, why not? Why not? Why shouldn't I do this? Why shouldn't I have a medal around my neck? Why shouldn't I go and trek for 100 kilometres across the Sahara Desert? Because if I'm not going to do it, who is going to do it? And I really want my girls to see that anything's possible if you put your mind to it.
You're so right. And actually, you can do it in a safe... We're not saying just book a ticket and randomly land in, I don't know, the middle of the desert. Companies like the Bucket List Company exist for you to be able to go with other people, like-minded people. I presume you can be a solo traveller, or you can go as a group, or all of those kind of things. And actually, it's not... People think, well, this is massively expensive. I think there's ways of doing it actually on a shoestring and a budget too. Am I right, Sian?
Yeah, you are. And one of the things we do at the Bucket List Company is we offer monthly payment plans for people. So we're taking bookings now up to the end of 2025 with a view that if people want to do a once-in-a-lifetime experience like climbing Kilimanjaro, they can pay it off monthly. I might only be paying 30, 40, 50 pounds a month to do one of these amazing experiences. So, it is affordable and really achievable. Yeah.
I just absolutely love that. Sorry, you were going to say and interrupt me.
I forgot what I was going to say now.
I was just saying about doing it safely and not just randomly going off. You can go with organised groups, and you can go with people. And like Sian said, they're now bringing it into the youth school sector, so that there's opportunities there. In your journey, Sian, have you had a teacher or mentor, and I'm sure you've had a number of mentors, a number of teachers that have inspired you? Is there any that you want to share on our podcast?
Yeah, there are actually. I had a couple who come to mind. Inspirational teachers from primary school. I would say my secondary school experiences probably weren't as positive, but primary school, there was one teacher and she just encouraged my love of reading. She was called Mrs. Ross. She probably is no longer with us, I imagine. But she just nurtured this kind of love I had of storybooks and just reading fiction. And she would talk to me about the books I'd read. She used to joke with me that I was obsessed with Enid Blyton books because I would, read The Faraway Tree and The Naughtiest Girl in the School and Mallory Towers and all of those, really amazing books that we used to read when we were like 8, 9, 10, 11. And I've still got them all out here now. I'm trying to get my stepson to read The Faraway Tree with me. And she was so nurturing. She really cared. And there's that Maya Angelou phrase that, you'll forget what people say, but you never forget how they made you feel. I will never forget how she just made me feel really cared for. And whilst, some of the other kids might have thought it was a bit nerdy that I was into reading, I was never made to feel that. So, yeah, she was really special, and she, just encouraged me and nurtured me. And then for other reasons, like at secondary school, yes, there were teachers there that have had an impact on me, but probably less positively. I remember one teacher, when I got my A-level results, I got 4 C's at A-level. So, fairly good. But for my school, they were like the worst results anyone had got in decades. And she sort of said, well, it's not what we were hoping for you. And I remember thinking, like, screw you. Like, who are you to sit there and tell me? Like, what? And I remember thinking, no, your life as a teacher is not for me. I don't want that. I want a special life, and I'll make that happen somehow. I wasn't sure how, but I was adamant, and that really stuck in my mind. What a thing to say to somebody that's just got their A-level results. There were other teachers at school that were similar ilk. I'm sure teachers now are a lot more nurturing, but you're still going to get the ones that are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I totally get it, because obviously I go to a grammar school as well, and in a grammar school, you know, it's kind of like, it feels like an own little world. Like, there's so many incredibly intelligent people there who are getting like 9s, which is like the old like A star. And there are so many people that they're just are getting those really high grades. And when you're in that environment, you're like consumed in this like total, it's like literally the 2% of people in the country, but you make it feel like that's everyone else, like in the whole country, when actually it's not. And I mean, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why I decided not to stay on at my sixth form, but to actually go to college, because I want to like actually experience a place where it's mixed with everybody, like, because that's how I'm also gonna like build relationships with people that come from different places and are totally different people, instead of just staying in a sixth form where there's less people and they're all striving for, like, maybe not all striving for, but going for like the top grades just because that's the culture of the school.
I think you're spot on there, Liv. One thing that you can't really teach is the ability to get on with people and to understand other humans, and that would be such a key skill if you have already identified that you want to go there to experience kind of the real world. My middle daughter, Izzy, who's the same age as you, she is at a private school at the moment, and for exactly the same reason, she is moving to a college for sixth form, because I feel like they exist in this like little bubble and they're very protected, and actually she needs to get out into the real world now and see actually how she fits into normal society, not this little protected bubble. Whereas Nancy, my youngest, is at just the normal local school and has a much better understanding of kind of how lucky she is really to have the things she has in life. And yeah, you are right. We used to, at the nurseries, when we would employ students who'd come to us with kind of first degrees in early years education, they'd come in and they'd have all of the knowledge as to how to work with young children, but then you'd put them in a room with 15, 3-year-olds, and they wouldn't be able to interact with them. They wouldn't know how to read a story. They wouldn't know how to actually have a conversation with a parent, because they'd focus too much on the academia. And that doesn't make a well-rounded person. It's great. And for some things, it's really important. But let's not discount how important it is to be a good human and have people skills and get on with people.
I think you're so right. I'm thinking that what came to mind there, you were talking about nursery nurses and early years educators, but I'm thinking, nursing, for example, which it's a wonderful thing to go off and want to be a nurse, but there's so much academia around that. And actually, what about bedside manner?
Yeah.
What about caring for that human in the early part of the life, as in midwifery, or whether it's in the latter stages of someone's life and that life experience, to really care and not the paperwork and the biology, if that makes sense. Like, it's got to be a real balance, hasn't it? We've got to get the balance right,
and not just like the data. I mean, I remember when we went to the hospital with one of my recent asthma attacks, we had one doctor who was so lovely, and he knew everything. He knew what to do. He knew how to help me, but he made me feel like really safe and like really, just a really nice doctor, which just made the experience so much better.
Yeah, it's interesting that he also had a daughter your age going through GCSEs. He just had a real understanding of being able to communicate with this age group and care and get her better with the asthma attack that she was suffering with. It's really interesting.
In your career, it's, you can't underestimate what a massive thing that is. I'm in a small business now and have a policy that I just won't work with somebody that I don't like. They can have the best skills in the world, but I'm really honest, if I don't like you, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to be in an office 4 or 5 days a week with someone I don't get on with. If you've got no personality, I'm not saying you need to come all singing, all dancing, jazz hands every day, but gosh, being a nice person, you can't underestimate how far that's going to get you in your career. They say it's not what you know, it's who you know, and people will remember you if you're a good person throughout your career, the legacy you leave at each job from where you move, people will talk about you whether you're there or not. So let's make sure they're talking about you in a positive way and they have good memories of you. Just be a good person.
Yeah, and do you know what? It kind of connects, but I was watching this video the other day on what it says on, do you like gravestones? It says like a loving mother, a loving father, it doesn't say got a PhD, got 9 A's at A levels. It doesn't say what you did in your life. It talks about how you made someone feel, and it even shows like on that's what life is about, not what you did, but how the impact you had on other people.
Gosh, that's so interesting. You're so right, and we know that. Like you say, you mentioned the phrase about it's not what you do or did, or but it's how you make someone feel. That's the thing in business. It's a thing in humans, isn't it?
I think if more people recognise that, the world would be a better place. I was talking yesterday. I was out with my daughter, my eldest daughter, yesterday. We went up to London, and I ordered my wedding dress actually, which is quite exciting. And we were walking around Borough Market, and I was just chatting away with the guy on this oyster stand, asking him about all the fish and just having a real good chat. Where are you from? Blah blah blah. And he ended up giving me 2 oysters, and he said, "Oh, have them on me. It's your dress. You could just got your wedding dress. It'd be great." And I said to Abby afterwards, that's the value of human connection. I'm not standing there on my phone, plugging onto Facebook while I'm ordering the food or whatever. I'm actually having a conversation with him, and humans are just so we're so devoid of that at the moment. Like there doesn't seem to be that connection. I think phones stop it. Just we're doing 100 things at the same time, and we don't actually have that connection. We're not being a good person all the time. And I think if you can just seek to make someone's day a little bit better, whether it's a quick conversation, a smile, a hello, a how are you, even something like, "Oh, I really like your cardigan," or "Your hair looks nice today," that's great. It will make them feel good and they'll remember you.
Absolutely. We've got to rehumanise. We have to rehumanise. We have to have that connection. It's interesting what you said, that your policy now is not to work with someone that you don't like or you're not going to get on with. I remember meeting one of my mentors in business, and this gentleman met me at a hotel, and he said, "I'm only going to," the opening line was, "If I don't like you, I won't work with you." And that was literally his policy too. And actually now in my business with Little Voices, when I meet people, teachers, potential franchisees, can we go for dinner? Can we go for lunch? Do we get on? That's really important to me. It's all the people stuff. And we've got to remember that those networks take us in different areas. It's been a fantastic chat. I feel like we could go on and on and on, but we always end our chats, Sian, with a school run memory. Before we get there, where can people find out about the Bucket List Company? You've mentioned that there's a podcast, so people can search for that.
So
I presume.
Search that on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from, the Bucket Lister podcast. The website is thebucketlistcompany.co.uk. Plenty of stuff on there to download, to have a look at, and see what takes your fancy.
Oh, that's amazing. And obviously we'll stay in touch. I can't wait to see wedding pictures, etc. We never touched on our alcohol-free journey, which we wanted to.
That's just a bonus. That's another episode, I reckon. I do think there's probably another episode in there, Jane, about the impact of that on the family.
Why don't we do that? Maybe ask your girls if any of them want to come on and talk about how they feel having a mum who's alcohol-free. I know Liv says that she's not going to touch it with a barge pole, but I've been alcohol-free for 4.5 years. Are you just a little bit around the same time?
Coming up to 4.
Yeah, it's absolutely life-changing, the most empowering thing I've ever done. And I know that you feel the same. So that's episode 2, guys. Wait out for that, and we'll do that later in the year. But what would your school run memory be, Sian? Either your own or one with your girls?
So overwhelming memory of my own school run. My mum driving me to school in her mini metro with my brother and her best friend's 2 boys in the back, singing Gazza's Fog on the Tyne song over and over and over again every day for a term, because it was the only cassette that she had in her mini metro. And I can still see where we were, and we were all singing it in proper Gazza tunes. How bizarre. Why does that come to mind?
That is absolutely brilliant. I love the memories shared on the school run. We've touched on some things in this episode that have brought back memories for me. That the swimming teacher that used to put the P in the register. I mean, do they do that still at school?
We don't have swimming. Well, we don't do swimming at our school, but no, they don't do that.
But they did used to come over to you, didn't they, Sian, and go, 4 weeks in a row? I don't think so. But they couldn't prove it. It was just crazy. Wow. Cassettes in the car, that's fantastic. Memories of songs from the past for the older people listening to the school run. Thank you for joining us, Sian. It's been a fabulous episode. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me, Liv. Thanks for having me, Jane. Wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the School Run podcast. If this is your first time listening, please go back and maybe listen to a few other episodes that we've previously recorded. There's lots of interesting topics, people's different roles and careers. We're sharing all of these stories to inspire and empower young people. That's our reason why. You don't have to have it all figured out at school. My co-host Liv is my 15-year-old daughter, and I just keep telling her that school is just a small chapter of life, and there's so much out there if you just say yes to those opportunities. You don't have to have it figured out at school. We're privileged to be having these conversations, and we're really thankful to our guests for coming on. Please would you hit the follow button on the podcast channel that you're listening to us on. This will really help us to grow and improve the podcast long term. It'd be lovely if you could write us a review on the podcast that you listen to us on and maybe give us a star rating. Lots of people have already bought us a virtual coffee so that we can have some chats and plan the content going forward. The link is www.buymeacoffee.com/the school run. www.buymeacoffee.com/the school run. And as Liv has already told you in the middle of this episode, we do have an Instagram, the school run _official, and we also have a LinkedIn showcase page. Would you just share this podcast if you've enjoyed it with one other person today? That would really help us. Thank you so much. Don't forget to click that follow button, and we'll see you again next Monday at 6 a.m.